Hellraiser Inferno was a gritty noir crime drama with hell creatures, and that blows my mind. Released in the year 2000, it was the franchise's very first direct-to-video outing, and honestly, it was easily the most radical shift in tone we have ever seen from Hellraiser. Instead of the usual onslaught of leather-toting, gore-drenched skin flaps, we are following a corrupt, grizzled detective through the grimy streets of a psychological crime drama. Now, there is a belief out there that this movie did not begin life as a Hellraiser film, that it was an original script for a noir detective story, which was then adapted into Hellraiser. But that has since been debunked by the writer and director himself, Scott Derrickson. Interestingly enough, it was Pinhead himself, Doug Bradley, that claimed it was originally a script for a different movie. And I think once you see how very different this movie is from a typical Hellraiser outing, you will understand why there was such credibility to that rumour. But the real question is this a successful subversion of the horror genre, or just a generic cop drama with the face of a Cenobite? And probably the most important question, does this film actually hold up as a Hellraiser movie, or crumble under the weight of its own ambition? And to find out, we're going to dive deep into the Inferno. Ooh, that was corny. That was proper corny. Just a heads up though, there'll be spoilers ahead. Actually no, wait, that's more pirates than Cenobites. But then again, if this movie can mix genres, so can I. Actually, pirates? Hellraiser? I'd watch that, that could be cool. But yeah, anyway, on with the show. One thing I certainly have to give this movie credit for are the performances. I hand on heart couldn't say that this movie had a bad performance. From Craig Sheffer, who plays our lead character, all the way to the legendary Doug Bradley as Pinhead, and all of the supporting roles as well. Shout out to the frickin' Bay Harbor Butcher's dad, James Remar himself, who appears in Hellraiser Inferno. There is just something about that actor. I can sit and listen to him talk and it sounds somewhat judgmental, but also well reasoned and enjoyable to hear. So he was a fun addition to this movie. I also really liked Thorne's partner, Detective Ninonan, played by Nicholas Turturro. He delivers a good performance, but the main reason it works for me is that he is the sane perspective that is witnessing Thorne get lost in this crazy world that he is being swallowed alive by. His character is that dose of reality and is Joseph's only rock of sanity, making the hell that Thorne is facing all that worse when his partner dies. So it has to be said that the acting is good and we are not short of enjoyable characters. So credit where credit is due. Okay, so isn't it insane that they decided to make a Hellraiser noir detective movie? I mean, maybe I'm missing something, and this was just the natural next step for the franchise. I gotta say though, I love the idea. I'm a fan of the David Fincher movie Seven, so taking that approach with a horror series, I am down for that. But know what you're getting into. Because the concept is very interesting, the execution is another story. The problem with blending two very different genres together is you may get something groundbreaking and amazing if you stick the landing, but you will probably just end up alienating your audience instead. And at the end of the day, who are you making Hellraiser 5 for? Which is of course the Hellraiser crowd, but when you combine Hellraiser with another genre, you layer the entrance fee. Not only are you required to be interested in Hellraiser, but now you also need to be interested in noir detective movies. And sure, there's bound to be some overlap, I mean, me for example. Then there's the not interested in Hellraiser noir detective fans. Well, they were never coming to your party anyway, so there's only really that sweet spot that you've got to work with. And anything less than knocking it out of the park will not be good enough. If it's a groundbreaking success and they did such a good job merging the genres and it works on all levels, then word of mouth will spread. people who aren't necessarily interested in both Hellraiser and noir genres may give it a go and have a good time. But if it's mediocre, no one will care. You will have just provided a middle-of-the-road experience on both fronts. Whereas, if you make a pure Hellraiser sequel and give them an average movie, fans would probably be more willing to hand-wave that away and go, it's just more Hellraiser, I had some fun with it. So the idea of merging Hellraiser with noir, as interesting as that idea was, carried much more risk. And let's be honest, this was the 5th movie in a horror franchise and the first to go direct to video. It was probably never gonna be amazing. What do you want from me? To be clear though, I love that they took the risk. There are too many franchises out there that throw out the same movie again and again. For better or worse, you can't accuse Hellraiser of that. So you can probably guess from where I'm going with this, that Inferno wasn't that knockout success that I wish it was. In the end, it was pretty mediocre. It is a run-of-the-mill detective story of a cop who is looking for a killer, follows down the leads, beats people up for information, but cannot quite get a hold of what is going on. Which is of course because it's demonic. Not that he knows that at first. He has hallucinations, or what he thinks are hallucinations anyway, of being tormented by strange creatures. And then he goes down the rabbit hole, destined to never be the same again. So he is looking for this killer known as the Engineer, who is suspected by our main character of kidnapping a child. Then at each crime scene, he leaves a finger of said kid. Grueling stuff, and admittedly very effective for a Hellraiser movie, but the problem was, it can get quite boring as it does the play-by-play procedural detective trope, which is very easy to screw up. I mean, if you manage to stick the landing like something like 7 did, it's great, but if not, it can get dull real quick. There were times I had to snap myself to attention because I kept zoning out during the movie, which is a shame because there are elements that work quite well. The Cenobites, for example. Whenever they are on screen, it is appropriately creepy, and at those moments, a lot of fun. And I do like the character of Detective Thorne. I mean, yeah, he is super cliched, but it's an entertaining cliche. But it's the twist that I like the most. And I know I gave a spoiler warning earlier, but because I'm super cool and awesome in every single possible conceivable way, I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna spoil the twist. Okay? He was in hell the whole time, and this case was Thorne's hellish punishment created by Pinhead, which makes perfect sense. Because at the start, Thorne finds the lament configuration box at a crime scene and solves it, which is explained in a dark and somber monologue by Detective Thorne in the opening of the movie, which states he likes solving puzzles. To be fair, while it can be a bit heavy-handed, I did like the monologue. It set the tone well. Anyway, he solved it, and what historically happens when someone solves the lament configuration box? Well, of course, they summon a demon and control it as long as they don't stand in hell's way. Actually, screw that, that's just Bloodline being weird. Go check out my video on that. What actually happens is they are set upon by Cenobites, and find themselves in hell. And this movie did exactly that, but hid it inside a noir thriller. After Thorne follows the breadcrumbs, he is face to face with Pinhead, and the revelation is dropped on him that he is in fact in hell. I don't know why I'm saying that like it's going to surprise you when we've literally been talking about it for the last few minutes, but whatever. He was surprised. He was very, very surprised. And unhappy. He did express some dissatisfaction in his current circumstances. Yeah, I hear that the special effects budget was only $50,000. It shows. Then he gets killed and wakes up to do it all over again. I really do like that they had Pinhead devise a tailored hell experience for this character, rather than just the usual hooks in flesh stuff. which certainly do make their way into this movie as well, but the fact it was a personalised hell makes Pinhead seem more like a master of torture and less like just another brutal sadist. And the twist works on another level as well, because not only is it faithful to Hellraiser, but it also fits into the frame of the noir detective genre as well. Also, the kidnapped kid turns out to be a representation of Thorne's soul, morality and lost innocence, which has been degraded through years of corruption, drugs, drinking and adultery. And those fingers of the kidnapped kid at each murder scene are supposed to represent Joseph's decisions to descend into moral corruption and decadence. So I cannot deny the payoff is good. My issue is that they don't make doing the genre engaging enough throughout the movie. It is very paint by numbers. There's a killer, there's a mystery, there's a hard-boiled detective that won't let go. But there isn't enough nuance in there to make that particular aspect stand out, which is likely because the focus was on blending it with Hellraiser. Again, another issue of trying to mix genres. You have to do twice as much. Okay, so I think it's fair to say when it comes to the blending of the genres, room for improvement. But there is something else that the Hellraiser franchise has always been famous for, and that is the Cenobite Designs. They have always been imaginative and, to be honest, awesome. Obviously the most famous one is in this, Mr. Pinhead, who looks on point. Get it? Point. Pin. Yeah, oh, never mind. As mentioned earlier, his performance is great as always. He is used very sparingly in this movie, which I believe is the case for a lot of the sequels, or so I hear. It is also a very common criticism. However, in Inferno, I'm okay with Pinhead not having much screen time, because ultimately, he is the villain, and a villain in a noir detective story has to keep to the shadows until nearer the end, so I'm okay with him not having as much screen time in Inferno, whereas in other sequels, I may not like the lacking abundance of Pinhead as much. But in Inferno, it makes sense. The movie also introduces some new Cenobite designs into the world of Hellraiser, and happily the tradition of good Cenobite designs remains intact. The Wire Twins, the Sisters of Torment, and a crawling torso. Creepy, unnerving, and not something I would like to bump into in a dark alleyway, or even a well-lit bowling alleyway for that matter. Any kind of alleyway, really. I just don't want to meet them, okay? I just don't want to meet them. I don't care how many invites they send, how much they beg, I'm not meeting them. And if they send me a box, I'm not going to solve it. You should see me with a Rubik's Cube. I've had one for about 8 years and it's still not solved. I'm considering paint. With these new Cenobites, I got Silent Hill monster vibes from them. And I know Silent Hill came after Hellraiser, but since I played the games first, that's the connection my brain made. And I mean that as a compliment, because if it can replicate that same aura of dread, it's doing something right. We don't see a ton of these new Cenobites, but what I will say is when they are on screen, it really works. In conclusion, Hellraiser Inferno is a mixed bag that was chock full of admittedly easy to miss potential. Focus too much on the noir detective elements, you risk pushing away the Hellraiser fans. On the other hand, if you focus too much on the core Hellraiser aspects, then you make people think why bother framing it as a noir detective movie to begin with. It's hard to strike a good balance, which ultimately resulted in a middle-of-the-road movie, with some weird and wacky scenes that for some reason involved a martial artist cowboy. I know, weird and out of place, right? But then again, can anything be out of place in this bizarre movie? Then of course there is the play-by-play cop procedural stuff, which did drag in the middle of the movie. Maybe that was the reason for the cowboy martial artist scene, to wake us up a bit. It is an easy movie not to get into, but I have heard that it does have its fans, and sure, yeah, I can see that. Personally, I am in two minds with this one. I really do enjoy the character of Detective Thorne. I think he is well acted and fun to watch. There is something about that worn-out detective trope that I just love, and the revelation at the end that he was in hell the whole time? pitch perfect. It's just, there's so much of the other stuff that just doesn't work that well, or is just generic at best. When the movie allows itself to be good, it genuinely shines. But when it's not, it can be so damn boring. A difficult one to recommend, but I would love to hear what you think of Hellraiser Inferno. But I think I probably prattled on about this long enough, so that'll do it from me. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.